Robinson Crusoe, Chapter 25, Part 3. You know, says he, the children of Israel, though they rejoiced at first for their being delivered out of Egypt, yet rebelled even against God himself that delivered them, when they came to want bread in the wilderness. His caution was so sensible and his advice so good that I could not but be very well pleased with his proposal, as well as I was satisfied with his fidelity. So we fell to digging, all four of us, as well as the wooden tools we were furnished with permitted, and in about a month's time, by the end of which it was seed time, we had gotten as much land cured and trimmed up as we sowed 22 bushels of barley on, and 16 jars of rice, which was, in short, all the seed we had to spare. Nor indeed did we leave ourselves barley sufficient for our own food for the 6 months that we had to expect our crop. That is to say, reckoning from the time we set our seed aside for sowing. For it is not to be supposed it is 6 months in the ground in that country. Having now society enough, and our number being sufficient to put us out of fear of the savages, if they had come unless their number had been very great, we went freely all over the island, whenever we found occasion. And as here we had our escape or deliverance upon our thoughts, it was impossible, at least for me, to have the means of it out of mine. To this purpose I marked out several trees which I thought fit for our work, and I set Friday and his father to cutting them down. Then I caused the Spaniard, to whom I imparted my thought on that affair, to oversee and direct their work. I showed them with what indefatigable pains I had hewed a large tree into a single planks, and caused them to do the like, till they had made about a dozen large planks of good oak, near 2 feet broad, 35 feet long, and from 2 inches to 4 inches thick. What prodigious labor it took up, any one might imagine. At the same time, I contrived to increase my little flock of tame goats as much as I could, and to this purpose I made Friday and the Spaniard go out one day, and myself with Friday the next. We took our turns, and by this means we got 20 young kids to breed up with the rest. For whenever we shot the dam, we saved the kids and added them to our flock. But above all, the season for curing the grapes coming on, I caused such a prodigious quantity to be hung up in the sun that I believe, had we been at Alcant, where the raisins of the sun are cured, we could have filled 60 or 80 barrels, and these, with our bread, was a great part of our food, and very good living too, I assure you, for it is an exceedingly nourishing food. It was now harvest, and our crop in good order. It was not the most plentiful increase I had seen in the island, but, however, it was enough to answer our end. For from 22 bushels we brought in and thrashed out above 220 bushels, and the like in proportion of the rice, which was store enough for our food to the next harvest, though all the 16 Spaniards had been on shore with me. Or, if we had been ready for a voyage, it would very plentifully have victualled our ship to have carried us to any part of the world, that is to say, of America. When we had thus housed and secured our magazine of corn, we fell to work to make our wicker work, viz., great baskets into which we kept it. And the Spaniard was very handy and dexterous at this point, and often blamed me that I did not make some things for defense of this kind of work, but I saw no need of it. And now, having a full supply of food for all the guests I expected, I gave the Spaniard leave to go over to the main, to see what he could do with those he had left behind him there. I gave him a strict charge in writing not to bring any man with him who would not first swear, in the presence of himself and of the old savage, that he would no way injure, fight with, or attack the person he should find in the island, who was so kind to send for them in order to their deliverance, but that they would stand by and defend him against all such attempts, and, wherever they went, would be entirely under and subjected to his commands, and that this should be put in writing and signed with their hands. How we were to have this done, when I knew they had neither pen nor ink, that indeed was a question which we never asked. Under these instructions, the Spaniard and the old savage, the father of Friday, went away in one of the canoes which they might be said to come in, or rather were brought in, when they came as prisoners to be delivered by the savages. I gave each of them a musket with a firelock on it, and about 8 charges of powder and ball, charging them to be very good husbands of both, and not to use either of them but upon urgent occasion. This was cheerful work, being the first measures used by me in view of my deliverance for now 27 years and some days. I gave them provisions of bread and of dried grapes sufficient for themselves for days, and sufficient for all their countrymen for about 8 days' time. And wishing them a good voyage, I saw them go, agreeing with them about a signal they should hang out on their return, by which I should know them again when they come back at a distance before they came on shore. They went away with a fair gale on the day that the moon was at full, by my account, in the month of October. But as for an exact reckoning of days after I had once lost it, I could never recover it again. Nor had I kept even the number of years so punctually as to be sure that I was right, though, as it proved, when I afterwards examined my account, I found that I had kept a true reckoning of years. It was no less than 8 days I had waited for them when a strange and unforeseen accident intervened, of which the like has not perhaps been heard of in history. I was fast asleep in my hutch one morning when my man Friday came running in to me and called aloud, "Master, master, they are come, they are come!" I jumped up, and regardless of danger, I went out as soon as I could get my clothes on, through my little grove, which, by the way, was by this time grown to be a very thick wood. I say, regardless of danger, I went without my arms, which was not my custom to do. But I was surprised when, turning my eye to the sea, I presently saw a boat at about a league and a half's distance standing in for the shore, with a shoulder of mutton sail, as they call it, and the wind blowing pretty fair to bring them in. Also I observed presently that they did not come from that side which the shore lay on, but from the southern end of the island. Upon this I called Friday in, and bid him lie close, for these were not the people we looked for, and that we might not know yet whether they were friends or enemies. In the next place, I went in to fetch my perspective glass to see what I could make of them, and having taken the ladder out, I climbed up to the top of the hill, as I used to do when I was apprehensive of anything, and to take my view the plainer, without being discovered. I had scarce set my foot on the hill when my eye plainly discovered a ship lying at an anchor at about 2 leagues and a half distance from me, south-southeast, but not above a league and a half from the shore. By my observation, it appeared plainly to be an English ship, and the boat appeared to be an English longboat. I cannot express the confusion I was in, though the joy of seeing a ship, and one I had reason to believe was manned by my own countrymen and consequently friends, was such as I cannot describe. But yet I had some secret doubts hung about me, I cannot tell from whence they came, bidding me keep upon my guard. In the first place, it occurred to me to consider what business an English ship could have in that part of the world, since it was not the way to or from any part of the world where the English had any traffic. And I knew there had been no storms to drive them in there as in distress, and that if they were English really, it was most probable that they were here upon no good design, and that I had better continue as I was, than fall into the hands of thieves and murderers. Let no man despise the secret hints and notices of danger which sometimes are given him, when he methinks there is no possibility of its being real. That such hints and notices are given us, I believe few that have made any observation of things can deny. That they are certain discoveries of an invisible world and a converse of spirits, we cannot doubt. And if the tendency of them seems to be to warn us of danger, why should we not suppose they are from some friendly agent, whether supreme or inferior and subordinate, is not the question, and that they are given for our good? The present question abundantly confirms me in the justice of this reasoning, for had I not been made cautious by this secret admonition, come it from whence it will, I had been undone inevitably, and in a far worse condition than before, as you will see presently. I had not kept myself long in this posture, but I saw the boat draw near the shore, as if they looked for a creek to thrust in at, for the convenience of landing. However, as they did not come quite far enough, they did not see the little inlet where I formerly landed my raft, but ran their boat on shore upon the beach, at about a half-mile from me, which was very happy for me. For otherwise they would have landed just as I may say at my door, and would soon have beaten me out of my castle, and perhaps have plundered me of all I had. When they were on shore, I was fully satisfied that they were Englishmen, at least most of them. One or two I thought were Dutch, but it did not prove so. There were in all 11 men, whereof 3 of them I found were unarmed, and I thought bound. And when the first 4 or 5 of them were jumped on shore, they took those 3 out of the boat as prisoners. One of the 3 I could perceive, using the most passionate gestures of entreaty, affliction, and despair, even to a kind of extravagance. The other 2 I could perceive lifted up their hands sometimes, and appeared concerned indeed, but not to such a degree as the first. I was perfectly confounded at the sight, and knew not what the meaning of it should be. Friday called out to me in English as well as he could, "O master, you see Englishmans eat prisoner as well as savage mans." "Why," says I, "Friday, do you think they are going to eat them?" "Yes," says Friday, "they will eat them." "No, no," says I, "Friday, I am afraid they will murder them, indeed, but you may be sure they will not eat them." All this while I had no thought of what the matter really was, but stood trembling with the horror of the sight, expecting every moment when the 3 prisoners would be killed. Nay, once I saw one of the villains lift up his arm with a great cutlass, as the seamen call it, or sword, to strike one of the poor men, and I expected to see him fall every moment, at which all the blood in my body seemed to run chill in my veins. I wished heartily now for my Spaniard and the savage that was gone with him, or that I had any way to come undiscovered within shot of them, that I might have rescued the 3 men, for I saw no firearms they had among them. But it fell out to my mind another way. After I had observed the outrageous usage of the 3 men by the insolent seamen, I observed the fellows run scattering about the land, as if they wanted to see the country. I observed that the 3 men had liberty to go also where they pleased, but they sat down all 3 upon the ground, very pensive, and looked like men in despair. This put me in mind of the first time when I came on shore, and began to look about me. How I gave myself over for lost, how wildly I looked round me, what dreadful apprehensions I had, and how I lodged in the tree all night, for fear of being devoured by wild beasts. As I knew nothing that night of the supply I was to receive by the providential driving of the ship nearer the land by the storms and tides, by which I have since been so long nourished and supported, so these 3 desolate men knew nothing how certain of deliverance and supply they were, how near it was to them, and how effectually and really they were in a condition of safety, at the same time that they thought themselves lost and their case desperate. So little do we see before us in the world, and so much reason have we to depend cheerfully upon the great Maker of the world, that he does not leave his creatures so absolutely destitute, but that in the worst circumstances they have always something to be thankful for, and sometimes are nearer their deliverance than they imagine. Nay, are even brought to their deliverance by the means by which they seem to be brought to their destruction. And we'll start on chapter 26 in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys. As Tigger says, ta-ta for now.